All right, we are live, everybody. So, good morning. My name is Kevin O'Connor. I'm from This Old House, and I'd like to welcome all of you to our Google Hangout. For the next 45 minutes or so, we are going to demystify the smart home, answering questions from you, talking about some of the newest technologies, the pitfalls, and ways to make our homes smarter. And helping me do that, as is always the case, I surround myself by experts, and in this case we have got ourselves 5 great panelists representing consumer groups, academia, Ph.D s, CEOs, and our own TOH specialists. And so I'm going to very quickly turn it over to them and ask them to introduce themselves before we dig into the discussion. And gentlemen, as you introduce yourself, please tell us a sentence or two about your background. And I'd like to hear, in your own experience and in your own house, what is your favorite or your most used smart home technology? And with that, I want to turn it over to you, Dan, to start off the introductions. It's all yours.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate it. My name is Dan Fulmer. I'm founder and CEO of FulTech Solutions, a smart home and smart building integrator in Jacksonville, Florida. We started back in 1995, so we're about 20 years old this year. I'm also chair of the CEA's Tech Home Division, which covers the professionally installed connected home and the devices that the industry puts out. I would have to say my favorite technology in the home is lighting control. We seem to use that pretty much daily, well, all the way throughout the day, and it's great with wives and kids and security aspects of it too. So I'd have to say that's one of my faves.
I appreciate that. All right, Shawn, off to you.
Hi, I'm Shawn DuBravac. I'm the Chief Economist for the Consumer Electronics Association. I've been in the tech industry for the last 20 years or so, watching as tech evolves, and it's been an exciting time. Certainly what we've seen happen in the home around smart home has been phenomenal, and I'm excited for what the future will bring. As I look at smart home technologies, it really has amazed me how things have changed and evolved, and it's really become a much more friendly environment for the consumer. So there's really a plethora of things out there for us to use. I have an Alexa in my kitchen, and I see how that changes the way that I interact with my house and interact in my home. One of my kind of all-time favorite smart home technologies was probably my Ph.D. home run when I installed that probably 10 plus years ago. And then, like Dan mentioned, just being able to automate many of the features in my house, whether it's lighting, whether it's temperature control or other things, being able to remotely monitor things with video feeds is also pretty remarkable.
Great. I appreciate that. Matt, off to you.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. My name is Matt Zartman. I'm with Alarm.com. We're the leading smart home platform. We've got more than 2.3 million homes powered by our technology, and obviously we're built around home security. But and I have the full range of options in my home, so it's great to be able to kind of connect to all those devices from anywhere. But I'd say my favorite kind of capability is this notion of awareness and knowing what's happening around the home when I'm away from it. So whether it's an alert that the front door opened and it's my son coming home, or it's a video clip of him coming and going, those kinds of connections back to the home I think are really powerful and meaningful. My favorite feature.
Good, thank you. Jason.
Good morning. So Jason Johnson, CEO and co-founder of August. We make the August smart lock. And no surprise to you, my favorite product for the home is the August smart lock. And it's really one feature about it in particular, because you get used to coming home like with groceries in your hand, or I have a little boy, one hand and a bag in the other, and you walk up to the door and it just unlocks automatically. And it's one of those things, once you've had it happen a few times, you kind of get used to it, and you walk up to like your car door and, hey, why isn't this thing open? Why isn't this thing unlocking for me? You go to your office, it doesn't happen. You get kind of used to it. So I'm a technology guy. I have a little bit of technology in my house, and look forward to talking to you all about technology in the home.
Good, thank you. Last but not least, Eric.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, Eric Hagerman. I'm the special projects editor at This Old House magazine, and I added all the smart home coverage we do, as well as the big product feature we do at the end of the year called the This Old House Top 100, which is the 100 best new home products of the year, and that covers everything from like new rolling pins to to new windows from Marvin to obviously smart home technology. So this is one area that I cover. It's been really sort of re-energized me in terms of home product awareness. In the last couple of years, I've been really interested in seeing how rapidly the market's developing. I mean, I remember, I think 4 years ago, one of the first times we had the top 100, we talked about Lowe's Iris system, and just looking back at that, I mean, that was a nice product at the time, and then looking at where things are now, like even that system has evolved. Just seeing how rapidly things are changing, that's been really exciting for me as an editor to try to keep up with that stuff and keep our readers informed about, trying to separate the wheat from the chaff from them a little bit is always a challenge as an editor, because you can't try everything. I have tried a lot of stuff, and one of the favorite things I have in my house are smart door locks. And I'm a little bit brand agnostic. I do have one of Jason's products in my house. I also have several competing products from other companies because I have a brownstone and I have multiple entry points and a renter, and so I have different locks for sort of different applications in the house, and that's been good for me to be able to let people in to work on the house and things like that. And as Jason was saying, the first time you sort of walk up to the door and have it open automatically, that's a pretty powerful experience. And being able to open the door and let the UPS guy in, for me, has been kind of a game changer. So that's what's really kind of interested me in this whole setup.
Great. All right. Well, welcome to all of you. We've obviously got ourselves a great panel. Eric, let me stick with you, just because of your knowledge, a definition from you about the smart home. For a decade or so, we had green, and it's a word that gets thrown around, and everyone interprets it differently. Here, I'm hearing about locks or lighting control. What is the thing that people should be thinking about when someone like you or anyone on this panel talks about a smart home?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something that we don't necessarily all agree about here at the magazine. Like, I have arguments with my boss about what is smart home. I like to define things very strictly and narrowly because it makes my life easier. I can say, yes, that's smart home, no, that's not. For me, it means that it's something I can control with my smartphone, which means it's an appliance, a device, a service that is connected to the internet that allows me to control that when I'm not at home. And that's kind of where I draw the line. Like, for me, an LED light bulb by itself is not a smart home technology. But that's my definition. It may be narrower or broader than some other people's.
Thank you. Gentlemen, controlled by your smartphone. Is that too narrow? Is there a broader definition? Does everyone want to jump in and throw out their 2 cents on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Kevin. I think that you would add, and I think that's right, Eric, but I think I would add one element to it, which I think is the service behind those devices. And is there a platform that can connect multiple devices together within the home so those devices can work together? And so I think it's that platform that I think is sort of where the smart home's going. There's a lot of different sort of models for getting this technology into the home, whether it's a single device or a security platform. But I think ultimately it's really about all those devices coming together and working together on behalf of the homeowner, so it's less about direct interaction and more about that responsive kind of automation.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Kevin. So I would say that it's smart, particularly not just that it's electronic and that it's connected, but it's smart if it's actually adding value, right? If it's actually doing something for you, it's either saving you money, it's saving you time, it's saving you hassle or stress. There has to be some kind of value benefit, right? Because just adding technology around our lives, sometimes it can be more of a burden than a benefit. So. When I'm talking to people about, smart home technology and what they might consider, I often ask them to really think about what are they trying to solve for before they just dive in and start, installing stuff, buying stuff.
Okay.
And I think that's a great point Jason makes, and along with everyone else's answer, I think it starts out as connected devices, not just one light bulb, like Eric said. I think it's got to be multiple things interconnected. we've evolved. We've been in business 20 years now, so we've evolved from houses that really weren't connected to the internet. We used to have to use your phone and you'd hit DTMF codes to make stuff happen, to now where we have internet-connected homes, and now via cellular and smartphones, you have smartphone-connected homes. But I think Jason's point is great. If the house isn't creating some solutions, or the systems aren't creating a solution for you, then it's really, you can be going overboard with it. So I think these systems should all be designed around creating solutions and making the homeowner's life easy. For instance, being able to leave the house, arm the security system via alarm.com app or any other device, one button press, and you can turn off all your TVs, your lights, shut your shades, arm your system, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's one of the key factors.
Yeah, and I would add that the mobile phone is the way we interact with these devices today, but in the future that won't necessarily be the way that we interact with them. And already we see lots of ways to interact with these systems. Sometimes there's a local control, sometimes there's a digital control like a smartphone. Over time, voice, gesture, other ways of interacting with these technologies will become more prevalent and prominent, and we'll really move into a world with full ubiquitous computing, if you will. It'll be ambient computing where things are happening and interacting with us without us necessarily needing to pull out a device and key something in.
The future is what intrigues me the most about this. We're going to get to that in a second, but before we do, let's talk about the present and what I think most people are concerned with when they get excited and talk about smart home technology, and that's security. Dan, I'll put this one to you. If somebody can hack the NSA, what hope do I have that my house isn't going to be hacked and someone can't slip through my door or tap into my video surveillance? Where do we stand with security, and what are the vulnerabilities?
Well, I think most devices are inherently insecure, and that's I think one thing that consumers need to realize is that you buy something, whether it's a modem, a router, or even the smart home devices, they typically come with either no username and password or a default username and password. The first step I would say would be to change those before you even connect it. There's some devices out there where there's foreign guys in foreign countries that are just sitting there waiting, sniffing the internet. As soon as you plug a new device in and it has a default username and password, they have full access to that. Then they can plant other software and then give them access even after you change the password. So I think it starts at a very basic level, from the router to the modem to the smart home device, locks or whatever. You have to change those default usernames and passwords first off. Next thing is, most people have heard of the stories of the baby cams, where you can go to the foreign websites, log into baby cams or webcams from all over the world and see cameras and people's rooms all over the place. Again, it's a prudence thing. These people are simply buying these products and unaware of how insecure they are. They plug them in, and boom, that stuff's available to anybody who happens to know how to get into that. So I think a lot of people knowledge of, changing the basic information on the username are protected and secured. At CEA, we've just developed some best practices. Secure smart specifically. We just finished that up. We're releasing that in the next couple of months to go out to integrators and dealers, and CEA members can access that via our website, ce.org or techhome.com. But basically, it starts with ensuring that passwords and network are connected properly and change those username and passwords correctly at the beginning. From there, you've heard about what's connected, because even in a smart, we typically will control the network and the back-end systems, some of the front-end systems in the house. So we've secured that. But if little Johnny, a new game, it opens the network, you just basically put a big hole in our security fence. So you have to be aware of what's going into your system and how it's connected.
Jason, you make a home lock. I wonder if it matters, the security failings. I mean, a key is great, but someone can pop their fist through my window and get into the house as well. Are we overdoing the security concerns, or are these legitimate things that we need to worry about?
Well, I definitely think everybody should be concerned about security, right? There's some basic things we all need to be doing with all technology, and let me just start by encouraging everybody who's viewing and participating. There's this thing called two-factor authentication, and most modern day systems, whether it's technology for the home or it's your email or it's many of the apps on your phone, they have this two-factor authentication element. What that means basically is nobody can compromise your account and be able to access, your locks or your cameras or really anything, your Facebook or Twitter or Google Hangouts, unless they have two pieces of information, and one of which is really difficult to obtain because one might be your email address, and the second one may be something that requires a real-time response. So maybe you're setting up an account. So if you go to August.com, you download our app, and you create an account, it'll send you a text message in the process as it asks you for your email address, your phone number. You then have to respond from that phone number, right, from that text message to authenticate that is in fact the right device. So it's tying the devices to the person, to the account, the identity. That is something we all should have in all of these systems today. But to your question, Kevin, around just basic technology in the home and safety security, I think locks are very important that they're solid and they have great encryption on them. Maybe your lights are less vulnerable, right? Somebody to turn your lights on or off remotely. It's I wouldn't want that, but maybe not as serious as your lock. But you did raise a very good point that 95% of home break-ins are through broken glass, and unfortunately we're just so used to the sound of broken glass. It's very easy for someone to break a rear window of a home and enter. Unless, of course, you have a good alarm system like Alarm.com, they can alert the authorities. But it's not. There's no lock picking. There's no Bluetooth hacking to gain entrance to home. That just doesn't exist. We've talked to authorities across the country, and that is just not a way anybody ever enters a home. It's far too easy to throw a brick through a window, unfortunately.
Let's get off of security for just a second. Matt, a little clarification, some terms and definitions to help us figure this out. Protocols, not a lot of things, not something a lot of us want to think about when we're thinking about smart homes, but we do. There are different ways that these devices communicate with each other. We are familiar with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Some people may or may not be familiar with Z-Wave. Can you put this into a small, nice, neat little ball for us and tell us what the heck it all is?
Well, let me shape it a little bit, and then hopefully some other people can pick it up, and we can get it down into that sort of easier to digest ball. So yeah, there's a lot out there. I think it is overwhelming, and kind of the sort of typical kind of homeowner probably doesn't want to think about all these different things. I think in terms of how you can kind of make sense of it today, because it is very fractured, we would say that at the cloud level, at that service platform level, that's really the opportunity to kind of make these things work together. And so I think our communications module inside the home has a number of protocols supported. It's Z-Wave, Zigbee, a range of proprietary protocols as well. Once you have that data sort of transmitted to the cloud, then it can kind of all operate together, and you can kind of create the responsive automation and that unified single app experience across all those devices. I think the other sort of element, this kind of dovetails nicely with the last question, is how does the system communicate in and out of the home? Dan made a good point about router passwords. I read a survey earlier this week that 40% of respondents hadn't changed the default password on their router. But there are options for that. If you're going to build your smart home around broadband, then you want to kind of understand your home networking and understand a lot about those communications protocols and security standards. But, for example, with Alarm.com, we use a dedicated cellular connection, and it's fully managed, so the homeowner doesn't have to kind of consider those things because it's a completely sort of managed connection, so it's kind of a different approach.
Matt, do these systems have to be hardwired in some respects? Can they all be wireless, or are we going to require some combination of the two between wireless and wired?
Yeah, it's a bit of a combination today, but far more towards wireless. So the connection for our solution in and out of the home is completely wireless, and we think that's a cellular broadband, and LTE is kind of a great platform to build on and to deliver more services across going forward. But inside the home, most of our home automation devices, and I believe most of the ones on the market, are completely wireless. I think video can be wired depending upon where you want to put it and how it's connected to the Wi-Fi. But I think it will trend towards all wireless.
Okay. Hey, Shawn, reality check here. I just heard that if everything can get up to the cloud, it can all come back down and talk very nicely to each other. Are we at that point yet? Do these different protocols actually come together and work seamlessly for us? Are we on the front edge of this, going through the bumps, or are we there?
Oh, so I think the best way to think about it is a continuum where things get consistently and continuously better. The smart home has come a very long way, and the things that we saw in science fiction 15, 20 years ago are now starting to come to fruition today in very real, applicable ways that work. And many of these technologies today work right out of the box. So for anyone who's listening, who's worked with smart home technologies from even 10, 15 years ago, there was a lot of if you will, manhandling that had to go into getting these technologies to work. And so they're working in a much more seamless way. They're working in conjunction with each other. They're obviously working in a very seamless way with your mobile phone, and so that's become the viewfinder into this digital life that we're building around the physical life we were already living. So that it's improving significantly and will as we continue to move into the future.
Great. Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I've got a bunch of different apps running in my household, a couple different technologies, beta testing things. That's by choice, but I think a lot of people might be in a similar situation. They've got one technology running the garage, another one running the boiler room, and possibly a third hooked into the computer and cameras and such like that. When you've got them all right here and they're different, what's the best way to get them all to work together and think about what should be on this phone or what should be in your hand?
Well, I think there's a couple different things going on there. I think people are frustrated with the number of apps, and there are some sort of solutions out there that people are looking to that give you an entire ecosystem, so that with the promise of you only need one app to run all of these devices, window and door sensors, locks, lights, thermostat, etc. I think that there's going to have to be some kind of over-the-top solution to applications, just like we have over-the-top streaming, Netflix, and how people are watching television these days. And I think that HomeKit is one solution to that. One of the things that I think a lot of consumers don't understand, I think a lot of people in the industry, and Shawn can correct me on this or add to it. A lot of people don't really understand exactly what Apple's HomeKit system is, and people ask, is it an app? Is it this? I spent several hours on the phone with Apple a couple months ago working on our smart home story, and the thing that finally struck me is that HomeKit is not an app, and the whole functionality of being able to talk to Siri basically gives you a direct access to all of your smart home gear that is HomeKit enabled by pushing your home button on your phone and talking directly to Siri. Siri, unlock the door. Siri, turn up the thermostat. Siri, open the shades. I think up until now, Siri was kind of a fun sort of gee whiz thing on a lot of people's phones. It had some functionality, but building that into the HomeKit, like using voice command to control this stuff. Basically, Kevin, all those particular products can have an app, but if you talk to Siri, you don't have to drill into the app to get those things to work. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if we saw other sort of over the top or over the app solutions that come along down the line.
Hey, Kevin, if I could butt in on this one, one of the anecdotes that we've used for years with respect to a number of apps on your phone for things you're controlling in your house is the same thing we did 10, 15 years ago with remotes. People would have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 remotes to control their AV system, maybe a fan and some other stuff. Well, we as an industry took that and combined them down into one touchscreen at the time. Now we can use a tablet or whatnot. Nowadays, we say the same thing. You can buy a lot of these disparate products online or in the DIY shops, the big box stores and whatnot. Install the door lock that has an app. You can install the thermostat that has an app, and then you've got the garage door that has an app. So you have an app for each one of these. However, for the last 10 years or so, professionally installed systems that have a central processor can take all of these disparate communication protocols and different technologies and products and make them work from one app. In fact, I've got my app here in my office where I can control my security, video, audio, HVAC. In fact, I was just bumping the air down in here while we were sitting here, all from one app. So I think that's one difference. It can be, I think, more professional installed systems have that ability to take a lot of those devices and put them on one app, whereas if you go buy the DIY or the one-off devices, you're going to get an app just for that. So I think there's just a difference in how you want to use it, how far you want to go with it. That is certainly available these days.
So Dan, let me ask you, if you do need that professional to come in and figure this all out, who do you call? Because I remember when I went down to the Radio Shack to buy a couple cables for television, and I walked out of there with the kid's number behind the desk saying, come by the house at 5 o'clock and do it yourself.
Right.
I had to pick him up because he didn't drive yet. And to me, he was my savior. But who are the homeowners supposed to call, and when do they know when to call in the pro?
Well, typically I'd say when the call is, I think DIY tech is great. I think it allows a broader introduction to the market to people who aren't familiar with it. But DIY is DIY. It's just like anything else. If you're building a deck or you're building a house, you can do it yourself, but you're going to miss some things typically that a professional would get. So I think it's just, when you run it to really do stuff and solve problems for you, where someone can use their experience of doing this for a long time to come up with solutions for those, I think that's when you'd hire a professional. Jokingly, I'd say when you want it all to work, but that's not necessarily the case these days. We do have a lot of good DIY products that are available now that you can, the consumer can go and buy and plug it in, and it'll work. I think one of the issues is complexities of quantities. So if you do a house and you put 5 light switches in and a thermostat, that might not be too hard for a DIY system to handle. But when I go to a home and do 80 or 90 light switches with multiple rooms and multiple scenes, the complexity isn't just linear, it gets exponential. So I think that's also when you should look at hiring professionals, when you have multiple systems doing at high quantity. So I might have 4 garage doors, 80 light switches, 4 thermostats. That's typically going to be difficult for a DIY system or a homeowner to do themselves.
Where do they find these professionals, though? That's what I'm curious to know, because the number one question we get on This Old House is, how do I solve my wet basement? But the number 2 question is, where do I find these people? So where do they find them? Do they go to the big box stores? Do they go to the sellers? Do they go through the yellow pages?
Well, we have integrators through the industry that are have been around for as long as me or longer. I've been around in business for 20 years. Typically, most cities in the country, there are thousands of integrators across the country. Both CE.org has a listing where you can see integrators on the website, as well as CEA. So you've got 2 big organizations there that espouse thousands and thousands of integrators. They espouse training them, certifications, manufacturer training, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd say every city has at least 2 or 3 excellent integrators in them, and probably a handful more. So
what are the search terms you'd use, Dan, to find those people?
I'd say integrator is a big term that we use in our industry, though it may not be as common knowledge to the consumer. Smart home installer. A lot of times it'll fall under security and alarm systems, so you can find it under those terms. But, look for smart home technicians, smart home installation. Those are kind of common terms. Integrator is a big term if you want to look for, we call it systems integration. Because basically we're taking all these systems and bringing them together. So that's what we call ourselves as an industry. But again, there are thousands of us out there. And again, I think CE.org, techhome.com, that's our sub-board group for the CEA, has a listing of deals and integrators that people can access, as well as CEA. So I'd say definitely look at those places.
Yeah, I think to reiterate a couple points that Dan made, the system integrated systems and these larger professionally installed systems are going to and can coexist with some of the DIY technology. So you're going to have households that are going to do both, and they're going to decide, where do I want to do a professionally installed system that's going to control, a number of things, and where do I want to apply, technology that I'm ordering online or that I'm picking up from my local retailer. So they'll be able to, in some ways, coexist, just like any project you'd be doing in the home. I think as Dan mentioned, you're going to want to then get a professional that is equivalent to the type of job you're wanting to take on. So you go to an organization like CEA, and you go to CE.org. You look at the the list of integrators and installers that they have, and then after talking with them, almost interviewing them, you pick the one that matches the type of job that you're going to do. There's Geek Squad through Best Buy, they do installation, so in some instances a retailer's installation services might be the right solution. For some instances you might want to take it and tackle it yourself, and then in other times you're going to want to look at a much more valuable integrator or installer to do a much larger, more involved and detailed job.
Kevin, if I could jump in real fast, I was going to say I think the folks at home should think about both the installation process, but also about sort of the longer-term relationship with the technology and how it's going to get supported over time. And so, I'm a little biased here, I'll admit that, but my recommendation is that there are a huge number of security dealers out there, excuse me, who are really driving the adoption of smart home technology, not just smart home security, but all the components and categories across the smart home. And so from an Alarm.com perspective, our service providers are trained on the technology, they're experts, they can install it and support it, and even support it remotely through our cloud backend. So I think there's some good options around the security dealer, as well as folks at home are looking to turn to someone to really give them advice. And I think it's that upfront question, maybe I can get this thermostat installed, but then what happens over time? How do I make sure it's going to work right? And it might not just be sort of a hardware problem with the wiring like any thermostat might have. It might be something a little more in the tech support realm, and that's really sort of that area that they got to think about.
Yeah, and so Matt, I've seen plenty of research to support what you've just said, which is sort of the number one thing on the list of people when they think about smart technology in the home is security. But also, when I think of you guys, rightly or wrongly, I think of little contacts that are hardwired into doors and windows, which makes the system very useful and very dependable. But if I don't own a house, if I'm a renter, which a lot of our market is, or if I'm going to be leaving that house in 3 to 5 years, which we tend to do, how do people think about this technology when they're transient? Should they be thinking about it as only when I'm in my final home? Or if I'm a renter and I'm coming and going, what do we do then?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think there's a couple different segments to the market. I don't think it'll be black and white. I do think from a sort of security-centric standpoint, those contact sensors are actually totally wireless, and you could take those with you to a new home. And I think a number of security subscribers do that, where they've got a really nice flat screen, excuse me, security panel in their home, and they've got the sensors adhered to all the entry points, and they can take that with them when they go. So I think you can move from home to home, but to your sort of latter point about a renter versus a homeowner, I do think there's just multiple ways that people are going to start to adopt this technology, and maybe they adopt a smart thermostat and a lock as a renter, take it with them to their home, and then integrate it into the security system that they want to get when they bought their first home or had their first child. So I think there's sort of an evolution here where different market segments sort of evolve over time.
Yeah,
If things are wireless, if things tend to be going in the wireless direction, does that make it easier to take it with us, or are we still talking about physical things that we have to leave behind? When I install one of Jason's locks, do I have to leave it behind, or is it going to get to the point where we just take it with us, like we take our furniture?
Yeah.
I would say it depends, and really the answer is probably both, but it's also important to recognize that having these technologies in your home often increases the value of your home, and so that when you sell that home, one of the reasons you were able to sell that home for the price that you were able to sell it for, or for selling it quickly if that was the goal, was because you had some of these solutions inside the home installed, ready for the new homeowner, a very seamless experience that they can just pick up and go with when they move into the home.
Okay.
I would have to agree on that. I'd say that we've had several homes over our 20-year period that have actually flipped, and one of the services we'll provide our consumers is when they sell the house, we'll come down and show the new homeowner how the system works, what it can do for them, et cetera, and that has definitely added value and makes their homes easier to sell. As far as the DIY system or the renter systems, there are small self-contained systems that they can buy and install themselves that aren't really connected physically to the house that they can certainly take with them. But I agree with Shawn that it's, people have to pick where they want to do that. It may be a little bit of a hybridization over time. They grow through some DIY stuff into some professional or higher end stuff. And again, I think the systems that you buy are kind of dictated by your decisions and your problems you're trying to solve. Hey, I'm a renter and I want to secure my home. Okay, well, they have a wireless security system I can put in with a camera maybe and a door sensor and some things like that I can easily take to my next home. Or, hey, I'm building a custom home. Well, I want to integrate some high-end technology, speakers, audio, video, TVs on the walls, all that. That's typically going to stay. But again, as Shawn alluded to, that's going to add value to your house and actually increase the sale time on it.
Mm-hmm. But some people that they want to, if they spend that money, they want to take it with them. So you spend $200 on a smart lock, for example. That's not a small amount of money. And so one of the things that we did as we approached the smart lock challenge was finding out how can we make it something you can take with you, right? That it's so easy to install, that it's very portable. And I should mention that some of the big lock traditional companies like Schlage and Kwikset, they make smart locks. Actually, they make pretty good ones. Their locks, of course, are total replacements, right? It's a whole module on both sides of the door with a bolt. So we designed August. It's a fun little thing. If you guys can see this, we patented these special little wing latches. And so the way that August installs, it's only on the inside of your door, and it attaches to your existing lock that's on your door. And about 85 to 90% of American homes have deadbolt locks. So this attaches with these little wing latches over this mounting plate, and just as easily as I press these down, it's attached to the door, and once the mounting plate is on. And then when you leave, you just swing up these wing latches, you take off the plate, you put your little thumb turn back on the door. It takes about 5-10 minutes, and this goes to the next home. And in fact, we see this happening with some of the real estate companies. They're actually installing these temporarily on homes that they're listing for sale because they're so easy to take off afterwards and take it to the next house they're going to sell.
Gentlemen, I want to move to the future. We've got less than 10 minutes left, and I do have to say I can vouch for your comments, Jason. We installed one of yours on Ask This Old House, and I had the privilege of doing it. When they send me out to do an installation, they make sure it's really easy. But anyway, to the future. I want to talk about the future. Big, broad thoughts about the future, what's trending from all of you, but starting with you, Jason, since you are in the home lock business. What is the future for home locks? What's some of the new things coming down the pike there?
Well, Eric already mentioned earlier this HomeKit technology from Apple. Being able to use your voice to control the systems in your home is quickly becoming popular. And so, in fact, this model of the August Smart Lock that I just held up for you, this is the latest one that we announced last week with Siri voice control. So it supports HomeKit, which is great. Siri, unlock my door. One thing I do is I have a few of these in my house, and so when I go to bed at night, I say, hey Siri, lock all my doors. And simultaneously you'll hear all the doors locked throughout the house at the exact same moment. It's like lockdown at the Johnson house. It's kind of fun. So one of the things I'm happy to show you, it's pretty fun. This is a new thing we also announced last week. This is a video doorbell. So we talked about Wi-Fi earlier. Wi-Fi is in 80+% of American homes. With this August doorbell cam, and if you have Wi-Fi in your house, when somebody presses the mechanical button, of course your doorbells chime inside your house like they always do when someone presses your doorbell. But now with the August doorbell cam, you get a push notification on your mobile device, Android or iOS, and then you can see and speak to the person at your door, and you can let them in. If you have an August Smart Lock, you can buzz them in or just talk to them. It's another evolution in the smart home and adding intelligence and connectivity to more systems of the home. And as mentioned at the top of the program, we're all looking for ways to make life a little easier, a little more convenient, not having to rush home and let in that plumber, that repairman. And we've actually partnered with a whole bunch of service providers. In fact, Sears Home Services is one of our partners. So you can have Sears come to your house to fix your broken dishwasher. You can actually give them access, temporary access to the August system. And we have it all on video, and you see them come in, they fix your dishwasher, you come home from work, and you have the ability to clean your dishes.
So we've got about 5 minutes left, gentlemen. From each of you, a minute, starting with you, Shawn. What does the future look like? What are the bright spots? How much further do we have to go? What do you think?
Right, so I mean, obviously we talked a lot about voice, and I mentioned that right from the get-go, that the way we interact with technology is changing pretty significantly. We've been talking smart home for decades. But if you go back, even as late as 2000, only about 3% of U.S. households had broadband connectivity. We were still essentially dialing up and going online. Now, for the most part, those of us who have home internet connectivity have broadband. It's always on. And so that, coupled with wireless capabilities, Wi-Fi in the home, has forever changed the way we'll view the smart home, and it really empowers a tremendous number of solutions. So, you know, you need to think about a world where, for a long time, technology was your home PC, and there's about 1.7 billion PCs in the world. Today, there's about 2 billion smartphones in the world. But we're moving into an environment where we're going to have 40, 50, 60, 70 billion different connected objects. And I think the next 10 years is going to be this really interesting experimental stage where we say, hey, does the internet make sense here? And if it does, what's that use case scenario? And I think that's what you see from companies like Argos. Does the internet make sense in a lock? And if it does, what does that lock look like? And if so, what does the use case scenario look like? And that's what's playing out in the smart home arena today, and that's really where we're driving to into the future. Over the next decade is exploring where the internet makes sense in the home.
Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I think another area is that it'll be maturing over, and this is a little further down the horizon a little bit, but is how do you bring the benefits of the smart home and value in the smart home beyond the home itself? And so one area is, as you amass a large number of smart thermostats, you can help utilities really flatten the demand curve for electricity, and that's sort of this community, broader, good, value, benefit, etc., that's sort of extracted from the home as you network them and bring them online in scale. You know, I think another area that's interesting is if you look at home insurance, one of the biggest potential for damage at the home and insurance claims is water damage. And so with a simple water sensor and a automated water shutoff valve, you can essentially prevent that from happening from a leaky pipe. So whether they froze and broke or an old water heater just blew out, you can shut the water off for the whole home and really reduce damage. So I think as you go way over the horizon here, there's these broader benefits that you can start to bring out of the home on behalf of both the consumer and then obviously other entities too. So it becomes a mutual benefit.
With just 2 minutes left, Eric, what do you think? What's the future look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the points that both those guys made are really good. I just, you know, like Dan said earlier, I think this stuff just keeps getting better and better. And, you know, there was a New York Times columnist, Nick Bilton, wrote the other day that basically he was warning people off of smart home technology, saying we're 5 years away from anything that people should invest in. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, you know, 5 years ago you could have said the same thing, but like, you know, having smart door locks on my door and a video doorbell allows me to let the UPS guy drop a package inside my front door while I'm at work, you know, so I don't have to get packages at work. That is an amazing functionality, and I think as that stuff progresses, it's just going to be something that people come to expect in their homes, whether it's a retrofit application or something that's being built into the home from scratch. I think people are going to start to expect this smart home technology, and it's going to be built into everything that we put in our homes.
And I think it's important to recognize that the technologies are maturing over time. So you go back to our early life with cell phones, we had dropped calls all the time. And we were okay with that. We accepted that early on because it was a new technology and it provided so many benefits. Over time, we became less forgiving of dropped calls, and today, you know, the call quality has gotten better, call reception has gotten better. Not perfect, but that doesn't mean that we don't use our smartphones, that we don't use our cell phones. The smart home technology is the exact same way. Early on, we'll be forgiving when it's a little bit cumbersome to set up, or it doesn't always work, it's not always connected. But over time, those problems are going to go away, and throughout the process, from beginning to end, we're going to be realizing tremendous benefits.
Yeah.
Dan, I'm going to give you the last word on the future. What are your thoughts?
I just think broader adoption is very on. You know, again, I've been doing this for 10 years, so anyone who says it's not ready to adopt, you know, just factually incorrect. You know, I think one of the issues was early on these were very expensive systems. They did, as Shawn alluded to, took a lot of manhandling to install. You had to have a lot of backing knowledge. That has gotten a lot simpler over the years. Not totally to the DIY side, but it's a lot easier to integrate these systems, excuse me, and make them work together. So I think what we're heading to is ubiquity, where everyone, like everyone has cell phones now, everyone will have some kind of connected device in their home over 5 years.
Gentlemen, that's the end of our 45 minutes. I want to thank you very briefly for your participation. I'm also going to let you know that we're going to stay on the line for just a couple more minutes. There are lots of people tuning in with lots of questions coming in. So if anyone has to go in the audience, thank you for joining us. These gentlemen have been gracious enough to stay for a few more minutes. Let me get to some of these viewer questions. As I read through them, they are coming down into two major categories, things that we've already covered, but clearly there's a desire for more. And those categories are these things really safe? And secondly, are we there yet? Are the folks who have adopted these things over the last 5 to 10 years the pioneers and have been on a fool's journey, or are we literally at the point where the smart house has arrived and is doable? Shawn, I want to start with you from the security standpoint. I think the other guys have a vested interest in it. Answer your thoughts on security. Are they as secure as they need to be? Is there a misconception about insecurity?
Obviously, security and privacy and safety are all important elements anytime digital data is involved. And that's a conversation that we're having in every sphere where we're digitizing information. I mean, I think it is important to recognize that not everything is perfectly safe or perfectly secure, and that doesn't inhibit us from using them. Vehicles, of course, aren't perfectly safe today. Airline travel isn't perfectly safe today. And yet, we view that the threshold is high enough to where the benefits outweigh the costs. And I think that's where we are, for the most part, when it comes to smart home technology.
Let me push back, though, as you say that, though, because if we are in the early stages, is it possible that the nefarious folks haven't sort of rushed in yet? And as adoption grows, when we all have a wired lock or we all have a video camera in our house, is that when the hackers show up and do things get worse? Or will we counteract that trend?
So, I mean, I think the to remember is that companies obviously want these systems to be very secure, and so they're building data into them. The end user at the end of the day does have to take some responsibility, and they have to ensure that they're doing their part on their end to ensure that you know, they're putting in passwords on their networks, putting passwords into the systems, using passwords and security settings recommended by the company. So the end user needs to take some responsibility, and honestly, their professional installers often come in and add value and help by ensuring that the systems are secure. At the end of the day, it all comes down to control. Whether we're talking about privacy, whether we're talking about data security, it's all about who controls that information and how is it utilized. And that's something that everybody involved in the smart home arena, whether it's the end user, the installer, the company manufacturing it, they all care a tremendous amount about ensuring that the control makes sense.
Eric, your thoughts?
So I want to make a practical point, Kevin. A couple people have written in about security settings. We've got a story in the October issue called How to Hack-Proof Your Smart Home. One just practical thing for people to remember in terms of Wi-Fi settings is that you need to be setting your Wi-Fi password to the WPA2 setting. Like, under no circumstances should you stay on the WPS setting. So it's not only about the password itself, it's also about the type of password you have in your Wi-Fi router. And going with WPA2 is going to help secure that home network a lot more than WPS. So that's just a practical point people should keep in mind.
It's a good point, Eric, and I want to thank you for losing 2/3 of our audience.
WPA2.
That's terrific. So everyone's just signed up. No. Final word, guys. Starting, I guess starting left to right with you, Dan. Have the people who have adopted this technology, are they early adopters and have they wasted their time? Is everything that's good and stable about to come, or are we already there? What do you think? I'm going to you, Dan.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I would say we're there. I mean, again, we've been installing systems for a solid 20 years. We literally have a almost 100% referenceable client list. We still work with our clients from 20 years ago. We believe these systems are an investment. We typically sell high-end systems. We've sold high-end custom home systems for years. You know, they are pricey, but they're solid. They work. They provide my clients a lot of benefit and solution, problem-solving solution to their lifestyles, and they've been using them for years. So, and the stuff, as Shawn alluded to, it's only gotten better. Where we used to put up with some shortcomings or a delay in how fast something would operate, that stuff has gotten quicker, better, and more reliable, and easier to install. So I think absolutely we're there. It's just a matter of continuing to grow, spurt forward, and the products will continue to get more innovative, more connected, and cooler.
How about you, Matt? Have we arrived?
Yeah, I think we've definitely arrived. You know, at Alarm.com, we've got more than 2.3 million homes that stay protected and safe every day with our technology. And it's a advanced security system, and you can add all kinds of devices from around the smart home to it as well into a single mobile app. There's a service provider network that it's distributed through, so you can get support, have questions answered, have it professionally installed and supported, or go through a supported DIY model as well. So I think the mass consumer adoption of the technology is there, and it's going through a particular channel right now. I think over time the technology may evolve. But right now, yes, we would confidently say that here at Zartman.
Jason, you're coming out with a doorbell, so I have to assume you not only think we've arrived, but you're ready to answer the door.
You know, one thing I want to mention around smart home technology is Nicholas Negroponte, the founder of MIT's Media Lab. He's an investor in Argos. Early on, he said, Jason, look, any system in my house that you want to change, you want to make intelligent, you want to make smart, the thing you should always remember with technologies is whatever it's adding onto could work just as it did before. So the light switch could always work, whether your Wi-Fi works or not, right? Your lock should work just as it did before you made it a smart lock. Same thing with your doorbell. And I think that's really key to the smart home becoming mainstream, because we're busy people. We all have a lot going on, and we don't want to do the hassles of things in our homes not working. So as long as we have these principles in our design of these products and these systems, and we make sure that we're keeping that basic fundamental idea in mind that it has to work 100% of the time. If we do that, then we can really deliver the smart home, to everyone.
Eric, you just an early adopter, or are you mainstream?
Yeah, well, I think no. I think now is the time where early adopters are shifting over into mainstream, and I do think that security and front door access and control is probably going to be the way that consumers enter the smart home market. And I think once they go through that door, so to speak, then they're going to broaden out into other things. But I think it's a little bit tricky for consumers because there are a lot of products out there. There are a lot of systems out there, and people don't know what to choose. But I think if they take it in a case-by-case basis and look at everything, they need to figure out what they want to achieve and go from there. And I think if they do the research and read up on the products and look at reviews online, they're going to be in good shape.
Shawn, I'm going to give you the last word. What are your thoughts?
I think all of this innovation we've seen in the home is just overrated. We're going to get rid of indoor plumbing. We're going to get rid of electricity. We're going to go back to leaving our car keys on the front seat, leaving our doors unlocked. No, I mean, we're definitely there, and we're going to only get better. A well-known science writer talked about the way he he writes science fiction is he takes something that's hard today and he makes it easy. And I think that's key, right? Is that whether it stays the same or whether it changes, it's taking something that's hard and complex today in the home and making it easy. And when we do that, we fundamentally change the way that we interact with our home, the way that we interact with the people in and around our home. And I think that's an important concept. So while today you may have 2, 3, 4, 10 connected objects in your home, we're quickly moving to an environment where we have hundreds of connected objects in our home. I met somebody just this week that's got 250 connected items inside their home. And so when you start to get into an environment like that, it opens up a lot of opportunity. It also opens up some challenges, and that's where smart home technologies come in.
Gentlemen, thank you. Dan, Eric, Jason, Matt, and Shawn, from all of us at This Old House, we appreciate your time, your guys' insight into this discussion, and for all of those folks who are watching, we appreciate your guys' attention to the lively discussion. We'll do it again. We'll dig deeper into it next time, but for now, we're going to have to sign off. We're already over a little bit of time. Thank you all for participating, viewers and panelists.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks, viewers. Have a great day.
Yeah.